So when you go out on a habitat site, you get to really put your beliefs and your want to do good into action. And you walk away at the end of the day knowing what you did. You can drive by it years later and say, I worked on that house. You get to meet the people that you're building the houses with.
Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast, a regular discussion with building industry professionals. This is Senior Editor Patrick McComb. Today I'm joined by Dan Hines, Production Manager for Habitat for Humanity of Washington, D.C. You can find the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast and the original Fine Homebuilding podcast at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. You can ask questions and leave your feedback there too. Dan, thanks a million for being here this morning. It's good to see you, man.
Good to see you too, Patrick.
So how's your life been affected from the outbreak of COVID-19? Are you guys able to run your Habitat for Humanity as you were, or have things changed?
I wouldn't say it's normal. Things have definitely changed. I think that's the case for everybody, but we've been lucky. And here in DC, even during the shutdown, we never really had to fully shut down. We were deemed essential workers. So we obviously stopped taking volunteers pretty early on. Late February, I think we made the call because numbers got heavy here in DC pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, having worked for Habitat in the past, safety of our volunteers and our staff is paramount. So we thought we were taking a break just for a short period, but we haven't been able to go back to having volunteers here. And I'm not honestly sure when we will. Obviously, that's different around the country. Every Habitat affiliate kind of makes that choice individually. We're all independent affiliates that kind of report up to Habitat International. So they gave us guidance and recommendations and support through all of this, but each affiliate kind of has to decide what's right for their community. And our affiliates our build sites are so tight. There's not a lot of room to spread out. So just having a large group of volunteers just doesn't work for us right now. We were also lucky that when it hit, we were at a stage in the 14 houses that we were building at the time, where it was a pretty good spot for us to switch over to subbing some more things out, doing some more things in-house with just me and my superintendents.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been slower and obviously frustrating, but my affiliate's been lucky. I haven't had to lay off any of my guys. We've been able to keep working the whole time to keep moving towards our mission. So I consider our very lucky in that. Some of the friends around the country work for affiliates that their restores were hit really hard because, like all retail, when stuff shut down, they got hit pretty hard. So some affiliates haven't had it quite as good. So I feel very lucky.
Can you please talk a little bit about the mission of Habitat for Humanity and who are the home buyers that are purchasing these homes that you guys are building affordably?
Yeah. So Habitat, our mission is to make sure that everyone has a simple, decent, safe place to live. And that means a lot of different things. Habitat is in every state and the District of Columbia and almost 70 countries now. So it's a pretty large organization. So what that means in different countries and in different states means different things, which is why each local affiliate kind of has to meet their own needs. Our homeowners are all DC residents. My affiliate is just in Washington, DC. So we have one of the smallest geographic areas of an affiliate. So all of our homeowners are from DC. They buy the houses. There's this misconception among people that maybe don't know much about Habitat that we give away houses. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. Our home buyers buy them just like any other home buyer. They have to qualify for a mortgage. They actually do sweat equity. So they come out and work alongside our volunteers, either on their house or one of their neighbors' houses. And we provide them, training to try and make sure that they're set up for success, as far as budgeting, maintenance, all the stuff that goes along with being a new homeowner. And I kind of wish I had a training for that when I first got my house. But, as far as their background, it varies. They come from every race, nationality, faith. We have single parent families, dual parent families, ones where maybe the grandparents are living with them. We've even actually had some projects where we did one bedrooms, which was nice because we got to kind of serve a smaller population. So we had some single veterans, or a parent with just one kid. Our normal kind of bread and butter is a 3-bedroom ish townhome, but it's nice when we get to build different products so we can serve kind of a different population.
You just touched on it, Dan, but Habitat affiliates operate differently throughout the country. Are you doing mostly rehabilitations or are you doing new builds?
So we do all of it. I will say we've had a string of doing mostly new construction recently because we have a pretty good pipeline of those. But in the going on 10 years I've been at DC Habitat now, we've done full gut rehabs, lots of new construction. We started a home repair program a couple of years ago. Most of what they do is what we call aging in place work. So they'll go into homes with an older person living there and do small repairs, add grab bars, maybe put a ramp in to help them be able to stay in their home. So we do a lot of different things, but this past year and the next couple of years going forward, it does look like for my construction department, it'll be mostly new construction.
And are the lots existing, or do you have the existing buildings on that they're scraped off, or what's going on there?
So again, yeah, we get everything. Recently, we've gotten a lot of plots of land partnered with the city where, maybe they own a plot of land for some reason and they want housing on it. And so we'll partner with them. But I will say the lots are getting tougher and tougher. As you can imagine, in DC, land is really at a premium. So we haven't had a simple slab on grade duplex in a while. Most of them are. We're just finishing a 14-unit condo, big structure, one of the biggest ones we've done under one roof here. And the lot that we thought it was native land, but once we started digging, we found an old foundation in there and an oil tank that we had to have remediated and all that. So we get a lot of ones on heavy slopes now, which means some pretty significant retaining walls, basements where it's undergrade at the front but a walkout at the back. So they can be pretty difficult sites. I long for the days of working in the Carolinas where it was a single 1-story slab on grade ranch that took a couple of months to build.
So, as you pointed out, much of the work of Habitat for Humanity is done by volunteer labor, but you also need professional tradespeople, especially for the licensed trade. So, what things, and I'm sure it's changed since COVID, but what things typically do your volunteers do, and what things do typically professionals in the industry do?
Yeah. So again, this is another thing where it really does vary from affiliate to affiliate. The smaller ones where maybe they're only building 1 or 2 houses a year, they may do almost everything with volunteers. They may even get volunteer plumbers and electricians to come in and do their work for them. DC Habitat is a medium to large affiliate. So we sub out, obviously, like you said, all the licensed trade, all the plumbing, electrical, HVAC. Like I mentioned, our structures are getting bigger and our lots are getting kind of a little bit hairier. So all of our foundations, really for the foreseeable future, will be subbed out just because it's a large scale concrete pour when we're doing a foundation for 14 houses at once. So when I worked down in the Carolinas, we poured all of our foundations with volunteers. So that's one that's a little bit different for us here. At DC Habitat, we always, with volunteers, do all of our air sealing, insulation, trim, doors. We finish hardware. I'd say about half the time we hang the drywall. We always have a professional come in and do the mudding and taping.
I learned that the hard way at my affiliate, dude.
Yeah. I've worked at affiliates where we did it with volunteers as well, and just the amount of time and effort
it takes forever.
Yeah. So that is one that we do, that we always sub out, thankfully. Painting is kind of one that we use to adjust. If our schedule is getting tight, we can pick up a lot of time by subbing out the interior painting. just because it takes us a little bit longer to do with volunteers to get the quality that we want. Flooring is another one. We do a click together LVT in a lot of the areas in our homes now. And we do that with volunteers, but if we're really busy, that's another one that they come in and just knock it out in a day. Let's see what else.
Exteriors?
So great question. We do the exterior insulation and the fur stripping. We do a rain screen on all of our buildings. So we do that. The siding, when we were doing 1 and 2 story buildings, we did that in-house with volunteers because siding's a pretty good task. But the more we get to these larger structures where it's 3 and 4 stories, the length of time and the amount of work at heights starts to become not conducive to volunteer labor. So we've subbed that out on the last couple of projects. So we kind of pick and choose on that. Same thing with roofing. We used to do all of our shingling ourselves, but the larger and higher off the ground that we get, the less we have volunteers that want to get, 40, 50 feet in the air. So, and that's another one where we have some good subcontractors that it really doesn't cost us that much more. And the speed that we pick up to sub it out makes sense.
I find it very interesting. I read your bio on the Habitat for Humanity Washington, D.C. Website, and you're an electrical engineer by education. Were you ever an electrical engineer in the workforce? And what brought you to Habitat? How did you even learn about it?
Yeah, so I am an engineer by education, and anybody that spends any time with me would not find that as a surprise, I think. Yeah, my dad sent me a T-shirt that a while back that says, "I'm an engineer. Let's just go ahead and assume I'm right." And my wife thought that was very appropriate for me. But I grew up in a hardworking Irish Catholic family, and my parents' service was just a part of our everyday life. My mom was a pediatrician, but spent her career. She founded and ran a clinic for children who couldn't afford healthcare. So, and my dad set up and helped run the homeless shelter in our town. So our day-to-day life was service. So when I went to college at Villanova University, and on break trips there, service trips are a big part of the campus life there. So pretty much all my fall and spring breaks throughout college, I did Habitat trips to the Carolinas and New Orleans and all over the place. And I fell in love with Habitat then. I thought I was going to take a year off and do volunteering, but I got offered a job with Lockheed Martin doing engineering, where they're going to pay me real well and also pay for my master's. So it's kind of too good an opportunity to pass up. So I did that, finished my master's. They, traveled around the country a lot, working with them for 4 or 5 years, and just got burnt out. Didn't have much of a social life as a 20-something-year-old. Didn't have a girlfriend or a wife or anything. So I decided to take a year of unpaid leave and do a year of AmeriCorps, which is a program to promote volunteering and service throughout the country. And Habitat gets a lot of AmeriCorps volunteers each year. So I did a year of service of that, and about halfway through called my boss at Lockheed Martin and said, "I'm not ever coming back." And so I did another year of AmeriCorps service after that, and then got a full-time position working down in North Carolina, and then eventually moved up here to DC to follow my now wife.
Mm. Do you remember when you first learned about the organization? Who introduced you to it?
Yeah, so my oldest sister, who's about 8 years older than me, she went on a break trip. They call it Collegiate Challenge, where college students take a week and go to around the country and
normally
build
on their spring break, right?
Yep, exactly. And so my sister had done that, and I think I still have the T-shirt she gave me from it. That is the earliest I can remember knowing of Habitat. And then obviously when I went to college and started doing it, I really fell in love with it.
Did you have any construction experience the first time you went on one of those trips?
Well, so, I mean, I liked working with my hands as an engineer. I kind of liked the science of things. And then I, built stuff with my dad, but nothing of large scale. I didn't have any real construction knowledge until I started volunteering with Habitat.
And what is your current role? You're a production manager. What does that mean, and what do you do?
So recently had a change in title to project manager, but um,
You got to change
it's
the website.
yeah, exactly. It's both basically the same thing. Along with our senior project manager, we run the day-to-day operations of our site. So we have a couple of superintendents that work underneath us, but we handle the material ordering and budgeting, subbing out work and contracting to subcontractors. We work with our volunteer coordinator to kind of, when we're having volunteers, schedule them, work with where they're going to be volunteering and all of that, and really just run the day-to-day operations of our sites.
What do you like about that job, and what do you wish you could change?
Yeah. So, I mean, when I came to Habitat, I would tell people my worst days on Habitat site were better than my best days sitting at a desk and in meetings all day. I really love working with my hands. That and then the service are the number one things for me. But as I'm sure you can attest to, as you get older and your back starts to hurt more, I definitely have moved a little bit more into management, which has its goods and bads. I get a little bit more say on what we do and how we do it, but I do miss it when I'm in the office too much and haven't gotten out on site too much.
Totally get that, man. So where do most of your volunteers come from? And do you host groups like you mentioned earlier, like Collegiate Challenge, that are typically week long or several days of volunteer efforts? I used to find that I had much greater productivity because when you teach a college student something in the beginning of the week, you get to use their knowledge and skills for the rest of the week, and you get more done.
100%. Yeah, you're exactly right. So when I worked for Habitat down in the Carolinas, some of those affiliates did a lot of what you're talking about, where it was week-long groups. They had a house that they could put them up in. So it was a lot of high school groups, college groups, churches would come for a week to do some service. But here in DC, it's pretty much day groups. So we get a lot of corporate groups. They want to do, a team build. So they volunteer and come out as part of their, service for their organization. We get a lot of government offices that want to come out and do team building. Churches. We get some colleges. There's a lot of colleges here around DC. So we have some campus chapters that come out Saturdays sometimes.
Do you have regular volunteers that do certain things sometime or all the time, or you can rely on them to do certain tasks or be out there all the time?
Yeah, great question. So we are blessed with some really dedicated regular volunteers. I would say about half of them are older, retired, and they come out, during the week, which is when we typically have a little bit less volunteers, and they're really helpful in leading and doing detailed work. And then on Saturdays, when we have more larger groups, we're lucky to have some really dedicated volunteers, regular volunteers that give up their Saturdays to come out and work with us. I will say we have maybe a little bit less of that here in DC than in some of the other affiliates I've worked at. We would have like a huge Rolodex of like 100 regular volunteers. We take, just because of our sites, it's a little bit more difficult. So our group sizes are smaller. When I worked down in the Carolinas, we'd have groups of 30 or 40 people on a regular basis. We're more in the 15 to 20 range, just because our structures are a little bit more detail oriented and tough, and it's just tight on our sites.
Can you describe some of your favorite Habitat for Humanity experiences? And I'm going to ask you the question that was the most common thing people ask me is, have you met Jimmy Carter?
So I'll take the second part of that first. Yes, I've been lucky enough to meet Jimmy and Rosalind Carter a couple of times. I've gotten to work on their annual Carter Work Project. So I went to Haiti for that, Dallas, Denver, I was supposed to go to Nepal, but that ended up getting canceled. But yeah, I've gotten to go internationally on to Thailand on a service trip. So I've had some pretty cool experiences from that. And the Carters are just amazing people. But honestly, my favorite experiences are what we call Build-a-thon. It's a yearly blitz build that the AmeriCorps volunteers do. So, around the country, there's hundreds of AmeriCorps volunteers working with Habitat each year. And at the end of each year, they come together for a week in one or two spots. And, it's just an amazing experience. You get a bunch of, 20-year-old 20 to 30-year-old people together that have spent their entire year learning how to build, and then their enthusiasm and energy, and everybody just comes together and works as hard as they can for a week. And the amount you get done is amazing. The experiences, it's exhausting, but those are just my favorite. If I get to go every year, it's my favorite time of the year. I met my wife at a build-a-thon. I proposed to her years later at another one. They're really the best experience.
So your wife was a Habitat volunteer, and you met it on the site?
So she worked for Habitat. I often tease her because a lot of our friends are former AmeriCorps, and she'll steal my old AmeriCorps T-shirts sometimes, and I tell her she's got to take it off because she didn't earn them. But she worked for Habitat, and then she worked for the affiliate that I was working for at the time. And now she works for Habitat International.
That's pretty cool. Do you know other people who have met on the job site and gotten married or have long-term relationships? It's pretty common, right?
It's very common. I mean, like I said, I met her. Half of my groomsmen in my wedding were people I met on Habitat sites. It's really, you meet people that, are just the best. Our volunteers, our homeowners, everybody's the best. So the fact that a lot of people end up having long-term relationships with people they met on a Habitat site isn't surprising to me. So if you're single, go start volunteering at a Habitat site.
I would say the same thing. I met my wife too on the Habitat site 20 years later. So what do you think has made the ministry so successful? And I'll let you answer that, and then I have a follow-up question.
Yeah, so for me, I think too much, I think a lot of people want to do good in their community. They want to give back. But too much of the time, it's just writing a check or, going to a fundraiser or something like that. So,
and you have to wonder if it's making a difference, right?
Exactly. So when you go out on a Habitat site, you get to really put your beliefs and your want to do good into action. And you walk away at the end of the day knowing what you did. You can drive by it years later and say, I worked on that house. You get to meet the people that you're building the houses with. And this is maybe my personal thing, but I think you build bonds with people when you're building something that's different than in a way you build bonds with people in any other experience. When you come together, you may work with someone in an office all the time, but then when you're out on a Habitat site and you're trying to build a wall or paint a house or anything like that, and you just get to know them in a different way, and you build bonds with people in a way I don't think you get to too often in our society anymore. And I think that, along with just the tangible aspect of doing something, really connects with people.
What do you think Habitat for Humanity could be doing better? What are some things that the ministry is not excelled?
So, obviously, there's building things that, any Habitat affiliate could try to do better. And I strive to improve at that every day. But as an overarching organization, I'd have to say, I think advocacy would be one thing. The Habitat brand and name is really well known and respected. So when Habitat asks for something or puts their name behind something, people tend to really listen, I think. And as much as a builder, I would love to believe that to solve the housing crisis we have, I could just put my head down and build faster and better and cheaper, and that was going to solve things. But realistically, we're not going to build ourselves out of the hole that we have. We have to really look at the the issues and systemic problems that are putting us where we are with affordable housing. And so advocating and putting in public policies that can fix those problems. I said my wife works for Habitat. She actually does advocacy and government relations. So I'll probably regret saying this on tape. But the work she does, even though she doesn't get to maybe see the people that it affects, the work she does is probably going to do more to provide affordable, decent housing to people than all the houses I'll ever build. I just get to see and work with those people. So it's a little bit easier to tangibly know, but the work she does can make such a large scale impact.
You guys have built passive houses in DC, which I found pretty surprising. The mantra of Habitat for Humanity is simple, decent, affordable. How's that work?
So yeah, it's a good question and a question I get a lot, but I would, in some ways, a little bit reject the premise. A lot of what makes a house simple and decent and affordable doesn't really have to do with the energy efficiency of it. A lot of what makes a passive house is the upfront design and thinking through the details. Really good design and planning can get you a large percentage of the way to something like passive house. And the rest of it, we got donors that came to us saying, we want you to do passive house. The first one that I worked on was called the Empower House. And it was this really great partnership with Parsons and the New School of Design that were doing an entry in the solar decathlon. So that was a really special project. And they did the design, and that one, they fundraised a lot for it. So it would have been an expensive project, but it was kind of special. The next 6 passive houses we did were more normal Habitat passive houses. That project was the one I got to lead. And
these were single family, Dan? Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's fine. They were row homes, 2 sets of 3 row homes in a neighborhood. And they looked a lot like just any of the other houses in our neighborhoods, but they had obviously a lot more insulation. We spent more time air sealing. And so there are added costs to that. But we also you can find ways to kind of offset those costs, I would say. Our HVAC budget for that project, or our contract, I should say, was $0. Our HVAC guy was able to get the equipment donated. So obviously that changes things a little bit, but it was all heated and cooled with ductless mini splits. And so I was able to mount those. We used volunteers to run the line sets. And so our HVAC contractor just donated a day to come out, supervise stuff, make sure everything is done correctly, and then do the flaring connections and pressure test it and charge it up. So he donated that time. Now, that's a little different because he obviously helped us out, but it was a much smaller system than the systems we put in our normal houses. So you can pick up savings in other places. But the other thing I would say is that was years ago we did that. And even with that, I think we probably ended up in somewhere between the 10 and 20% increase for that. But they were the first ones we were doing. If we were able to keep doing them over and over again, and we try to learn from each project we do, and my coworker Andrew, the other project manager, and myself, we make a concerted effort every time we do a project to learn from what we did before and try and get better and better. So my belief is that if I had the opportunity to build our normal product, which isn't code built anyways, it's we either build to Earthcraft or Energy Star or LEED or something like that on every one of our builds. Our normal is Earthcraft. And so they're already not code. But the difference between those and Passive House, if I could build the same product next to each other and go apples to apples, I think I could get it very close to the same cost.
Are you guys doing like German triple glazed windows in those builds and stuff?
Yeah. So back when we did those, there weren't any U.S. manufactured Passive House certified windows. So ours came from Ireland. And that was one of the main cost increases. They're obviously significantly more expensive than the normal windows we were putting in. Now that was years ago. I think there are some manufacturers, I believe, in the U.S. now, and more people are asking for high efficiency windows. People like Fine Homebuilding are getting the word out, and so the more people that are requesting that type of window, I think the prices are coming down. But as far as for us, one of the things that we've kind of started to work towards is, even if you're not doing triple glazed windows, you can do more fixed windows, more casements rather than double hungs. To maybe they're not triple glazed, but they try to get better. Even if you're not going to get to the best, try to incrementally get better.
Have you ever thought, Dan, about building in the more conventional building sector? I'm sure you'd be well qualified and skilled at it. Is there something appealing about that, or just no go?
I mean, I would be lying if I said that there were not times. I've had over the years some things come across my plate for some really high efficiency type building stuff, or research positions, things like that. And I definitely am always interested in looking at them, but I had a good paying job doing engineering, and part of the reason I left was because I loved Habitat, and I still do. So the two things that really always keep me here are the service, but then, like I mentioned, I get to come to work every day and work with office right next to one of my best friends, and have met countless great friends with Habitat. So the combination of being passionate about the mission and just getting to work every day with great people, either our homeowners or my coworkers, that keeps me at Habitat. I will never say never. That perfect position could come along, but if I ever did leave, I would probably be the most regular volunteer they had.
So tell me about your own house. Do you have any new or lingering problems that you're happily or unhappily ignoring? Do you got triple glazed windows, for example? I bet you don't.
No triple glazed windows, but yeah, I mean, the contractor's house is always the worst one on the block, right? But that's not exactly the case for me. We own a 1910 row home, semi-detached row home in DC that we fully gutted down to the brick, and only thing we saved was the brick and the hardwood floors and joists, and then rebuilt the rest of it up on the inside. That's I thought it was going to take 2 years. It probably took us 4 or 5 to really finish that. As I'm sure you can attest, having listened to, when you're building in the place you're living in, man, it takes 4 or 5 times longer than you wish it did. And my wife is a saint for having put up with it. But
is she into building too? Does she wear a tool belt and get into it?
So she has a nice tool belt. I gave her a nice hammer years ago, but she doesn't. She'll help and is happy to get her hands dirty, but it's definitely not what she's passionate about. But I think she loves our house now. It's a pretty great, nice house in DC now. Your question about lingering problems. I installed we installed ductless mini splits in our home, and if you've ever had to clean one of those, it's a little bit of a ordeal. And so in doing that, I jostled the condensate drain on one of them, and so I ended up having a leak, which is now fixed. But I have been not diligent about fixing the drywall water staining, and it's in our bathroom, and my wife is not shy about reminding me I have to do
that. So what's next on the project list? Is it to fix that drywall or something else on the list?
For our house, it would be, I have to fix that drywall. We have a little a kind of a easeway out of the back of our basement that has a little drain. It's kind of a sunken, half buried basement. And I've been toying around with building a covering over it to keep the water and the snow kind of just away from that drain. So I don't have to try and worry about cleaning it all the time. We'll see if I get to that, though.
Yeah. I'm grateful for you being on the show, Dan. Thank you a million. I really mean it. Anything you want to tell our listeners or ask them?
So the first thing I would say, if if you don't know about Habitat, it's your local affiliate may be still having volunteers. Definitely get out there and volunteer. If you are know Habitat and you support Habitat, but they're not having volunteers out there, like anyone, Habitat's in a tough place. If you can donate to either your local affiliate or Habitat International, you could Google for your local affiliate. If you're in the DC area, our website is dchabitat.org. You can go on there, figure out how to support us. When we all get through this pandemic eventually, you can get out and volunteer. It's a great way to meet people and to give back. And like I said, definitely make your voice heard. If you believe in affordable housing and that everybody should have a simple, decent place to live, definitely, advocate for and vote for people that are going to put in public policies that are going to make that a priority. There's a program for Habitat has put forth cost of home. If you Google that, you can get on that website, and they're trying to do a really great push towards advocating and making a difference in our communities.
Awesome, man. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. Thanks to Dan Hines for joining us, and thanks to all of you for listening. Please remember to send us your comments, questions, and suggestions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. And please like, comment, or review us however you're listening. It helps other folks find our podcast. Thanks a million, Dan. It was a pleasure talking with you. Thanks to all of you for listening. Please stay safe, happy building, keep craft alive, and send some money to Habitat.